This is Radar for On the Radar Tape Blog, coming to another edition of MLB Observation of the 2022 offseason, Week 5. So the baseball world had their first ever draft lottery. You know, the NBA does it because they don't want teams just to be bad. So baseball decided they're going to get underway in that way. So the Pirates won it. The Nationals, Tigers, Rangers, and Twins are the top 5 picks, followed by A's, Reds, Royals, Rockies, Marlins, Angels, D-backs, Cubs, Red Sox, White Sox, Giants, Orioles, Brewers, and then the Rays, the Jays, Cardinals, Mariners, Guardians, Braves, Padres, Yankees, Astros, Phillies, Astros, you know, the teams that won the World Series go last. And this year, and then the winter meetings just happened, so there was the Rule 5 draft as well, where the Nationals picked somebody, the A's picked somebody, the Pirates and the Reds. The Royals didn't pick anybody. The Rangers had a full roster. The Rockies, the Marlins did. The Angels and Diamondbacks had a full roster, so they couldn't. The Cubs, Twins, and Red Sox passed. The White Sox picked the pitcher up, Nick Avila. Giants and Rays passed, but Orioles, Brewers, Phillies, and Padres and Mariners took players. The Guardians, the Blue Jays passed, along with the Yankees, Astros, Braves, and Dodgers, while the Cardinals and the Mets took some players as well. And now they also announced the MLB All-First Team. And JT Realmuto and Paul Goldschmidt as the catcher and first baseman. That makes sense. Paul Goldschmidt just won the MVP, and Realmuto is probably the best catcher in all of baseball. Altuve, I could probably say he's the best catcher, second baseman in all of baseball. The other options weren't that great when it came to other second basemen. Trey Turner, I don't know if he's the best shortstop, but clearly he's one of the 3 best. Machado, he's probably, if not the best, tied for the best with Nolan Arenado. It's the only claim there. Judge, Betts, and Trout, that makes sense. Alvarez, the DH, and Alcantara and Verlander, who just won the Cy Young. And Shohei Ohtani, Framber Valdez, really good. Edwin Diaz and Amanda Clase are the 2 best relievers you could say in baseball. I got no problem with that. I don't know if Alek Manoah is better than Dylan Cease, but that's just me. Will Smith is probably the second best catcher in baseball, makes sense. Freddie Freeman, one of the many good first basemen, makes sense. Lindor and Leonardo, as I said, one of the best shortstops and third baseman. Julio Rodriguez, who won Rookie of the Year. Kyle Tucker was an all-star, and Schwarber, who's a good offensive player. I don't know if I would say Schwarber is one of the 6 best outfielders in all baseball, but that would be another topic for discussion. And then Andres Gimenez went second base. When I think maybe Jeff McNeil, Jazz Chisholm, there's a few other guys this year that I would have thought were better at second base. Then the pitching, Urias, who could have won a Cy Young, Cease, who could have won a Cy Young, Max Fried, Nola, or even his teammate Zach Wheeler, which is fine to get one of them, Scherzer, and then Helsley and Presley. I don't know about Helsley being one of the 4 best closers. I would have gone Liam Hendricks or Gregory Soto, but that's just me. But they look like they're trying to pick one reliever from both the American League and the National League, so maybe there wasn't another one. Maybe Kenley Jansen. And then, of course, the DH was Shohei Ohtani, because if he's not going to be a DH on the first team, he's definitely going to be DH on the second team. Now, the actual baseball move. Sean Poppin officially is going to be on the Padres. Ali Sanchez is going to the Diamondbacks. These are all minor league deals. Ryan Bannon got picked up by the Astros. Miguel Yajure is going to the Giants. Eddie Alvarez, the Olympian, is going to the Brewers on a minor league deal. Jeff Hartley is going to the Marlins. Matt Coach is going to the Rockies. Brooks Wilson and Alan Rangel signed a minor deal with the Braves. Daniel Duarte re-signed with the Rays. Jasiel De La Cruz going to the A's. Efrain Contreras to the Padres. Sean Ross to the Pittsburgh Pirates. Cesar Valdez to the Angels. And Jason Martin, this quad A player we know from his time with Pittsburgh and Milwaukee, he's going to the KBO. Mioris Viloria, the former Royals catcher, keeps bouncing around this offseason. Now he's with Cleveland on a minor league deal. Carlos Estevez, who's been a pretty good reliever for the Rockies. The Angels picked him up on a 2-year deal, so that's a good move for them, because they could always keep him, because they got one more year, even flip him. Chucky Robinson and Jaron Solomon going to the Reds minor league deal. Abram Almonte, the longtime 4th and 5th outfielder who also has been busted for PED, has signed a deal with the KBO, because he's shown some promise in the big league, so that makes sense. James Kaprielian's got a shoulder surgery, should be ready in spring training, they said. He's one of the only A's pitchers I can probably name off the top of my head, outside of Paul Blackburn. Adonis Medina's gone to the Brewers. And Jace Peterson, a super utility guy who's played outfield, first base, third base, second base, you name it. The A's said, we're going to pick up a utility guy because the A's are not going anywhere, and they need somebody to fill any of the infield at bats. But a 2-year deal, I feel that's a lot. Vince Velasquez, former Sox pitcher this past year, signed a deal with the Pirates. If he does what Quintana did for them this past year, pitch well enough, they can flip him at the deadline. Tommy Hunter, Sean Reed-Foley, and Jimmy Yacabanis have signed minor league deals with the Mets. Tommy Hunter, when healthy, had at one point been one of the best setup men in all of baseball. Cabanas and Reed Foley are just failed starters. Jarlin Garcia, who had a pretty good run with the Giants, is going to Pittsburgh Pirates again. Always flip him at the deadline. Naura Mazara signed a minor deal with the O. They have a really set outfield of Santander, Austin Hayes, and Cedric Mullins, so I really don't know where he's going to fit on the roster. It made sense to San Diego because they didn't have a set roster when he signed there last year. Alberto Mondesai avoid arbitration. If he's actually healthy, that will actually help out the Royals to have one of their supposed best players. Tommy Conley, who has been a walking injury in his time between Colorado, Chicago, LA, and New York, is signed a 2-year deal to go back to the Yankees. If he's healthy, that helps the Yankees, who no longer have Chapman, and then I don't know what happened with Zach Britton if he became a free agent or not. He just hasn't been healthy. Berlin Marquez signed a minor deal with the Cubs. Rockies acquired Chad Smith of the Rockies gone to the A's for Jeff Criswell. You know, when it comes to Chad Smith, he is, one of these, average pitchers that you can get for the most part. And, yeah, it's just, as I mentioned, some of these teams like the A's and the Rockies are not really going anywhere, so it doesn't matter. Guillermo Zaninga, which is a great name, signed a minor deal with the Cardinals. Josh Lester, not confused with John Lester, this third baseman, signed a minor deal with the Orioles. And then the Phillies, they signed Matt Strahm. That's a good deal because he was pretty healthy last year and could be a good reliever for the Phillies. There were reports that he wanted to sign somewhere and be a starting pitcher. Well, you know what? The Phillies don't need him in the rotations. They could definitely use hitting as a reliever. Austin Bryce, gone on a minor deal with the Diamondbacks. Bill Hasselman is now officially the third base coach of the Angels, and Aaron Bates is now one of the Dodgers hitting coaches after the last guy, Brown, went to the Marlins. Glenn Sherrock, even though he's no longer like an actual first base, third base, or bench coach, he's a catching coordinator. The Mets locked him up on a 2-year deal. John Mabry has joined Skip Schumacher's staff to be one of the hitting coaches, the longtime Major League outfielder and Royals and Cardinals hitting coach. Definitely with the St. Louis Cardinals tie there. David Dahl signed a minor deal with the Padres. They're a team that don't know how their outfit's going to line up because Soto's not a right fielder. Grisham is a good center fielder but can't hit, and they don't really have a left fielder. There's projections that Tatis can play left field, but that's pretty stupid because he's not an outfielder. Maybe a DH. Cole Tucker, the one-time Pirates shortstop, signed a minor deal with the Rockies, who clearly don't have an everyday second baseman or shortstop that you can rely on, so it's a good enough minor deal. Brooks Raley got traded to the Mets for Keyshawn Askew. Brooks Raley's been an okay reliever for the Rays to help the Mets out for rotational depth. Casey Sadler signed a minor deal with the Mariners. Joe Jimenez was traded to the Braves for Justin Henry Malloy and Jake Higginbottom. Interesting 3-name, and Higginbottom's an interesting name. Joe Jimenez made the All-Star team one year when the Tigers were really, really bad, and you have one All-Star for every team. They just randomly picked a reliever. Lesmius Diaz signed a 2-year deal with the A's, who, again, they don't have a set shortstop. They don't have a set third baseman. They don't have a set second baseman. The super utility guy who was just on the Astros can play anywhere for the A's like Jace Peterson, so they're definitely going to be getting the most out of them as super utility guys. Seiya Suzuki announced he's going to play for Team Japan, the World Baseball Classic, for fans of the Cubs and for Japan. That'll be cool to see that. And also the Cubs news, Pat Hughes won the Ford Frick Award, so he's going to go to Hall of Fame as a broadcaster, so congratulations to him. The Red Sox did lose Mastrom, but last week they picked up Chris Martin. I'm like, that's good. Not to confuse, obviously, with the Coldplay lead singer. I was happy, though, that they signed Kenley Jansen 2-year deal. He had an okay season with the Braves this year. He was still all-star caliber. So the Red Sox finally have a shutdown closer, but problem with Kenley Jansen, he's sometimes a heart attack closer. So that obviously, you'll see how that goes. But they finally got two guys who can close games out for them, because the Red Sox really haven't had a closer since Craig Kimbrell left them. Jose Quintana signed a 2-year deal with the Mets, and Verlander also signed a 2-year deal with them as well. So to replace Jacob deGrom, who officially, after this video is recorded, later in the night, he signed a 5-year deal with the Rangers. So deGrom is out in New York, Tajon Walker is out, and Chris Bassett's out. So you still have Scherzer and Carlos Carrasco, and you're like, well, those are two veteran, older pitchers. What else are we going to do? Well, you add Verlander, you add Quintana. That really makes this 4-man rotation all veteran-laced, but it's pretty good because I know Verlander's in his 40s and Scherzer's 40, but Scherzer had some injuries beginning of his career, bounced around. Verlander just came off Tommy John, so I think the two of them, for the next couple of years, you need to capitalize on them being good right now. Same thing with Quintana. Tajon Walker, as I mentioned, who left the Mets, signed a 4-year deal with the Phillies. So they have a rotation still of Nola, Wheeler, Ranger Suarez, and now they got Tajon Walker. So by getting Tajon Walker, that replaces Zach Eflin in the rotation. They don't get Kyle Gibson anymore, but again, you could always go and replace a fifth starter. Now, this Masaka Yoshida signed a 5-year deal with the Red Sox. There are some journalists and scouts going that you pay too much money for him, but again, the Red Sox only outfielder that you can somewhat rely on is Alex Verdugo. They're playing Kristen Arroyo, Rob Repschneider, and Kike Hernandez in the outfield. What do those three all have in common? They're either shortstop or second baseman by trades playing the outfield. And they got JBJ, which was a waste because he couldn't hit. Jeremy Durant proved that he cannot hit either. So Verdugo's the only guaranteed outfielder. I don't know if this Mazaka dude's going to play center field or not, but the Red Sox just have openings in the outfield. And that would be a pretty good move if he actually turns out to be good. Jameson Taillon signed a 4-year deal with the Cubs. So the Cubs, after signing Marcus Stroman last year, went on and got a good veteran pitcher in Jameson Taillon, who had a pretty good year with the Yankees. He's not an ace, but having him on the team, he'll eat innings, and he's battled like cancer and Tommy John surgery. So he's had a lot of years off and didn't pitch a lot of years. So he doesn't have the same, wear and tear that other starters at this point in their careers have and age. So he pretty much would be a good fit for the Cubs because they definitely needed some pitching. Aaron Judge officially, don't have to worry about it. He's not going to San Francisco, San Diego, or LA. He's staying in the East Coast. He's going to the Yankees, back to the Yankees on a 9-year, $360 million deal. The Yankees could have figured this out ahead of time because they offered him a deal that was slightly less money in less years. But hey, now Aaron Judge is officially down on the Yankees for the next 9 years, so that's going to be a lifetime contract. He'll probably be a DH by the time it's over. Hopefully in the contract they have a little clause that he should not be playing center field all the time because that wears and tears at him, and leading off because that's more at-bats, wear and tear. But he's now back with the Yankees. And Wilson Contreras, who I wish the White Sox would sign, but they don't have money and they're stuck with Yasmani Grandal, they went and signed Wilson Contreras, who now gets to automatically play Yadier Molina. That obviously Contreras his whole career has been a much better offensive player than Yadier Molina, and Molina is one of the all-time great catchers who officially retired. And people are like down on Contreras defensively. Contreras is good enough defensively to still be a catcher and be that good offensively, and the Cardinals take it away from the division rival. The Cubs made a mistake not trading him earlier. That's what happened with Bryant and Rizzo and Baez. They took way too long to trade these guys, and pretty much it's a gut punch to the Cubs that Contreras has gone to the rivals, and they just won a division. So that was really one of the only holes. They don't have a real center fielder, and they didn't have a catcher after Molina's retirement. That definitely fixes those issues there. Okay? Andrew Heaney signed a 2-year deal to go to Texas, so he and DeGrom are joining Jonathan Gray in that rotation. That doesn't scare me. DeGrom has battled injuries. He's getting older. Gray is a little bit overrated, got too much money, and Heaney's also bounced around. He had an okay year with the Dodgers. The Rangers are spending a lot of money on 3 starting pitchers, Seager and Simeon. And again, this team is flawed. They're not better than the Astros, just won the World Series. They're not better than Seattle, who made the playoffs, and they're not even better than the Angels, who have more talent. So they're lucky the A's are that bad that they'd be a last-place team. So that's, again, a waste of money. Schwarber announced he's going to play for Team USA. I don't know. He's definitely not going to get any bats in the outfield. They're probably going to use him as a DH. And the Giants did not sign Aaron Judge. They went and signed Mitch Haniger to a 3-year deal. When this guy's healthy, he's a good two-way player. He can play good right field. He can sometimes play center field, and he could be in the middle of your lineup. That really helps out this team where Jock Peterson's in left field and he'll be in right. So between Lamonte Wade and Yaz, they got themselves a pretty good outfield on this team, and that is good for the lineup. That's the type of move you get to help your team out when you know you're not going to get the big fish. Cody Bellinger signed a 1-year deal with the Cubs to try to regain his value. Defensively, they rank him pretty well defensively, but if I were a team, I would have signed him to play right field. He's not a center fielder. He's going to get older, as you know, and he has battled injury. But the Cubs get themselves a reliable veteran. I don't know if he's going to rebuild his value, but that's a pretty good deal for them on a 1-year deal. Josh Bell signed a 2-year deal with the Cleveland Guardians, which helps them out because between him and Josh Naylor, one guy's going to play first base and one guy's going to DH, so they're going to actually have a really good lineup with Jose Ramirez and those two guys batting 3 through 5. Tom Esselman announced his retirement. He joined the Padres minor league system as a coach. Andrew Cashman signed a 4-year extension with the Yankees. You know, when that was announced, they didn't announce Judge. You're like, wow, we're wasting all this money on a GM. Come on. Since Chu announced he's staying in the KBO, basically means he's probably never going to come back here. Chris Bob has become the assistant pitching coach in Kansas City. Kyle Gibson, who we spoke of earlier about the Phillies, he signed a 1-year deal to go to Baltimore, which will do what a lot of teams do. If you're not in contention, you flip the guy at the deadline. Robertson signed a 1-year deal to be the setup man in New York. This helps the Mets out because they needed another guy so Diaz didn't have to pitch 2 innings. It hurts the Phillies, division rival, and they re-signed Brandon Nimmo to an 8-year deal for $162 million. I'm a huge Brandon Nimmo fan. The dude is a really good player, but he's not the world's greatest center fielder. He can't stay healthy. You know, it's a lot for an 8-year deal for this guy, but the Mets would have had no leadoff hitter and no center fielder, so they have to do that. They said the priorities were re-signing DeGrom and Nimmo. Well, they didn't re-sign DeGrom, so they spent that money on Verlander, Quintana, and Dave Robertson. That's fine. And they re-signed, obviously, Edwin Diaz in the offseason. Jake Magnum has gone to the Marlins in that earlier Mets trade. David Buchanan, Albert Suarez, the pitchers, and Jose Peralta, super utility guy, are saying Korea makes sense. JP Friedrichshausen had shoulder surgery, but they expect to be back in spring training. That's not good. Austin Allen signed a minor deal with the Marlins. Jason Hayward, who probably a lot of people thought should have retired, has signed a minor deal with the Dodgers to reunite himself with his buddy Freddie Freeman. As I mentioned, the Dodgers don't know what they're doing in the outfield, okay? Gallo's a free agent. Chris Taylor's a utility guy. Trace Thompson's a backup. And Cody Bellinger became a free agent, so they need somebody. So that's a good move. Hayward can be a good veteran backup. Silvino Brancho signed a minor deal with the Reds. Again, flip him at the deadline. Rangers DFA'd A.J. Alexi, and their Trevor Williams signed a deal with the National. A 2-year deal, which I'm surprised, because he didn't start many games with the Mets. He was more of like a swing guy here, and there. That's where I'm just like, okay, cool. Now, the other news is that Fred McGriff has finally made the Hall of Fame, okay? There were years where he just stayed on the ballot back when they had like 15 guys, right? And one of my issues there is that the dude was one of the greatest first basemen ever. He's probably the greatest first baseman in Tampa Bay Rays history, one of the 3 best Blue Jays first basemen of all time, because they had Delgado, and they had Olerud, and they had, so they had like Olerud and Carlos Delgado. So they had a lot of good ones. And then Atlanta, they've been around for a long time, no matter if they're Boston or Milwaukee. But outside of the current guy, Freddie Freeman, I'm not going like, man, I'm thinking that those Braves teams with Hank Aaron and Eddie Matthews, and those Braves teams with Dale Murphy, and even and then you're like, what about the Braves teams with Chipper and Andrew Jones? Fred McGriff played on those really good teams. So like that's again. He also had 2 shortened seasons. So instead of finishing with 500, he had 490 something. Whoop-de-doo. That's pretty darn close, man. He's one of the only clean guys. And I just like that 15 years on the regular ballot after 5 years of retirement. So that's 20 years. Then you add however many years it took for him to get on this veteran committee ballot to finally being voted in, that this dude should have been in. I'm not saying the first ballot Hall of Famer, but he should have been voted in the first 15 years he was on the ballot. Because it's pretty darn stupid there. And then the last baseball news I forgot to mention was both Xander Bogaerts and Trey Turner have signed 11-year deals. I don't know what is up when it comes to, these deals for people signing 11 years. People made fun of the Cubs for the long-term deal for Hayward and the years before Soriano and hockey. They try to outlaw this. 11 years is a lot for a guy like Bogaerts, who's never been a world's greatest defensive player. He's very slow. He's going to have to be a DH by the time this is over. And I've already mentioned earlier in this this YouTube video, that Fernando Tatis is projected to play the outfield when Juan Soto is not a right fielder playing right field. And they're thinking about playing Cronenworth at first base when he's an middle infielder by trade, moving Kim to second base. I get the Padres want to keep being in contention and signing all the big-name free agents, but they needed an actual first baseman DH. They needed a real outfielder to play alongside Soto and Grisham. They could have used some starting pitching. They could have used an actual closer or a setup man for Josh Hader. Like, there's a lot of moves that the Padres could have made. Waste their money on Bogaerts, who also was like not super young anyway. So 11 years from now, he's going to be in his 40s. And the Phillies signing Trey Turner makes sense. He's a little younger than Bogaerts. He's more athletic. He has played some center field and second base, so he's got some versatility. He's could hit for high batting average, and the dude is a speedster. He steals a lot of bases, and he should be batting leadoff, not Kyle Schwarber. But again, 11 years is too much, at least for him. He's younger. But again, his game is built on speed and defense. His defense could decline, and his speed could decline. Well, at least we know about Bogaerts. He doesn't have any of those. That's where I'm just like, come on, what are you doing? That's where I'm like, it doesn't make any sense there. And we'll end on is Jason Castro, the former Astros catcher for the Twins and other teams, and went back to the Astros here and did miss the most of the year with an injury. At least got to go out on top, saying he won a World Series after he made an All-Star appearance in his career. At one point was one of the better defensive, catchers in baseball a little bit. Then he was a good offensive catcher. But yeah, it basically come full circle. Started off with the Astros, we made the All-Star team, end his career with a World Series ring, and has a gold medal on his mantle. So that is not bad for him. And Rick Porcello, and obviously for a catcher coming off a knee injury, I obviously understood why he retired. Rick Porcello, on the other hand, I still thought at 33 he could help a team back, because a lot of teams could use back-end starters. He has a winning record, 115, 125, 1,500 plus strikeouts, and 440 ERA. The Tiger pitcher could say at least, I won a World Series with the Red Sox. I won a Cy Young and a Comeback Player of the Year and led the league in wins. So, not a bad career to have a World Series championship, a Cy Young, and leading the league in wins and a Comeback Player of the Year award. This was Week 5 for MLB observations for Hotstove of the 2022 Hotstove season, off-season edition. For On the Radar Table Block, I'm Radar. See you guys next time.